Join us for Nothing is Free, a powerful English story to boost your listening skills, expand vocabulary, and make learning fun. Follow David's journey of ambition and life lessons, all in simple, clear English. Let's dive in and learn together.
Chapter 1: The Opportunity. David had spent the last few years of his life trying to improve his English skills. Living in a small town, he had limited resources, so he practiced as much as he could through books and movies. One day, as he was reading through some language tips online, he noticed an ad for a language school in the city that promised an immersive English experience. The advertisement claimed that their students left the program fluent, with doors opening to all kinds of new opportunities. Intrigued and a little excited, David clicked on the ad. He read that this language school was offering a rare chance, a fully funded scholarship for a 6-month intensive English program. The only catch was that students would have to pass a basic assessment, showing commitment and a basic understanding of English. To David, it sounded like a dream come true. David stayed up late that night, revisiting grammar lessons and practicing his speaking skills in the mirror. He knew this might be the opportunity he had been waiting for, and he was determined to make the most of it. In the morning, he walked into the small-town bus station, his bag packed and a new notebook in hand. It would be a long journey to the city, but for David, every hour felt like it was bringing him closer to something big. When he finally arrived, David was struck by the size and pace of the city. The language school was even bigger than he had imagined, with classrooms that buzzed with conversation, computers for self-study, and a library filled with English books. A school representative greeted him at the entrance, a friendly man named Mr. Reed, who took David through the initial paperwork. "Welcome, David," said Mr. Reed, shaking his hand warmly. "We believe that language should open doors, and we're glad to have someone with your passion and dedication here." The assessment was held the next day, and David could feel his nerves bubbling up. After hours of listening tests, grammar quizzes, and speaking exercises, he was exhausted but hopeful. Finally, Mr. Reed gathered the applicants to announce the results. David's heart pounded, but relief and excitement flooded him when he heard his name called out as one of the scholarship recipients. "This is the opportunity I've been waiting for," he thought to himself, grinning from ear to ear. As classes started, David was surprised by how challenging they were. The teachers pushed him every day, correcting his pronunciation, giving him vocabulary drills, and assigning homework. By the end of the first month, David could feel himself improving, but he also began to feel the weight of the expectations around him. The teachers encouraged him, but David noticed a hint of seriousness in their eyes whenever they spoke about progress. One evening, as he was walking back to his small rented room, David ran into Mr. Reed, who smiled and struck up a conversation. "David, you're doing great, but remember, nothing is truly free. This scholarship is an opportunity, yes, but it requires a lot of hard work. Make the most of it, because there will come a time when you'll have to give something back." David nodded, though he didn't quite understand what Mr. Reed meant by giving something back. For now, he was focused on his studies, determined to make the most of every lesson. But a small part of him wondered if there was more to this opportunity than he had initially thought. Chapter 2: The Cost of Progress. David's days at the language school grew more intense with each passing week. His mornings were filled with grammar drills, afternoons with listening exercises, and evenings with speaking practice. He barely had time for himself, but he felt his English improving, and the progress was exhilarating. He began to speak more fluently, understanding idioms and expressions that had once been mysteries. Every small success made him more confident, and he could almost envision a future where English was no longer a barrier, but a bridge to new opportunities. Yet, despite his hard work and the scholarship, David started noticing small, unexpected costs. One day, he was required to purchase a set of supplementary books, which weren't covered by the program. Another day, he was told that he'd need to pay for a special language immersion weekend with his classmates. These additional costs were small but added up, and David, who had come from a humble background, began to feel the strain. Still, he was determined not to let it discourage him. He had come too far to turn back now. One evening, Mr. Reed called him into his office for a conversation. "David," he began, his tone both kind and serious, "you've made impressive progress. The teachers speak highly of your dedication. But I want to remind you of something we talked about before. Nothing is truly free." David nodded, remembering Mr. Reed's words from the beginning. He still didn't fully understand what they meant, but he felt there was something deeper Mr. Reed wanted to convey. "Once you complete the program, you'll have responsibilities to the school. We help you now, and in return we expect our students to give back. For some, this means becoming teaching assistants, helping others learn the language, or representing our school in competitions and events," Mr. Reed explained. David felt a wave of mixed emotions. On one hand, he was grateful for the opportunity, but he hadn't expected that he'd have to stay connected to the school after the program. His dreams had been focused on moving forward, building a new life and securing a job. But here he was, realizing that the scholarship wasn't just a gift. It came with strings attached. Determined to continue, David assured Mr. Reed of his commitment. As he walked back to his room, however, he felt the weight of his promise. He could feel the pressure building, a subtle reminder that his journey would not be as simple as he had imagined. Chapter 3. A New Beginning. The final weeks of the program were a whirlwind of exams, presentations, and last-minute practice sessions. David was exhausted but driven by the thought of finally finishing. His English had improved beyond what he had imagined, and he was proud of his journey. But even as he celebrated his progress, he knew he'd soon face the promise he had made to the school and to Mr. Reed. On the last day of the program, David received his certificate. It felt surreal to hold it in his hands, a symbol of his months of effort and sacrifice. But as he looked around, he saw his classmates, some of whom had become close friends, celebrating with their families. A pang of loneliness hit him. He had come so far, but his journey was still just beginning. Later that afternoon, Mr. Reed called him into the office once more. "Congratulations, David," he said, extending his hand. "You've completed this chapter. But remember what we discussed. You're expected to contribute back to the school, as we talked about." David nodded, his mind racing with the possibilities. He didn't want to stay tied to the school, but he was determined to fulfill his promise. That evening he stayed up late, writing a plan for how he would balance his future ambitions with his commitment to the school. The next morning, David approached Mr. Reed with a new proposal. "Mr. Reed, I'd like to offer English workshops for incoming students. I could help them adjust, share tips, and guide them through the first steps like a mentor. This way, I can contribute to the school while also preparing to apply for jobs outside." Mr. Reed considered David's idea thoughtfully. After a few moments, he smiled. "David, I think that's an excellent idea. You've shown initiative and responsibility. You can fulfill your obligation while also pursuing your future." With Mr. Reed's approval, David began to organize the workshops. He met with new students, sharing his experiences and helping them avoid the pitfalls he had encountered. He became a mentor, but more importantly, he felt fulfilled knowing that he was guiding others who were on a path similar to his own. Over time, David began to carve out a career that he had only dreamed of before. As he grew in his profession, he never forgot the lessons he had learned. that everything worthwhile comes at a cost and that true progress means giving back. In the end, he found that by embracing his responsibilities, he was not only fulfilling a promise, he was creating a legacy. And so David's journey came full circle. He had learned that nothing is free, but he had also discovered something just as important, that the cost of growth is often an opportunity to lift others along the way.
Literary review of Nothing is Free. Nothing is Free delivers a relatable narrative exploring ambition, sacrifice, and the harsh reality of pursuing dreams. The story follows David, a young man motivated by a vision of a better life, as he learns firsthand that every achievement has a price. In clear, engaging prose, the story unfolds in 3 chapters, each advancing his journey from naive ambition to self-awareness. This layered progression offers readers a realistic portrayal of the trade-offs between personal ambition and ethical values, making David's experiences universally relevant. The story's structure works well for English learners, balancing language simplicity with meaningful storytelling. The chapters are compact, allowing readers to engage with manageable language chunks while exploring thought-provoking themes. By witnessing David's inner struggles, readers are prompted to reflect on their own life choices, adding depth to the reading experience. One of the story's strengths is its effective use of dialogue and descriptive language. The simple sentence structures and gradual vocabulary increase provide a natural learning curve, making it accessible for learners at various levels. Each chapter builds on the last with a steady increase in vocabulary complexity, enhancing readers' comprehension skills while keeping the story dynamic. In essence, Nothing is Free is more than just a story for English learners. It's an engaging tale about life's challenges and the cost of ambition. It allows learners to practice English in a meaningful way, combining linguistic growth with valuable life lessons.